Hello and welcome to the Union Pacific Railroad Geneva Subdivision. My name is Daryl Cruz, owner and builder of the layout and your host for episode 27 of season 2019. This is an operations video featuring an intermodal train from the West Staging Yards into Global 3. This is train ILTAH. It's an intermodal train from Lathrop, California to Ashland Yard in Chicago, with a stop at Global 3 in Rochelle, Illinois. We kind of zoomed in here to see if we could identify the locomotives that we'll be using, and as you saw, we had to turn on the headlights first and then get things powered up and the train on its way. So you saw the staging yards, which then comes into the modeled portion at the backdrop there. And the first model part of the journey is through Clinton, Iowa. And from Clinton, we'll be heading across the Mississippi River. We have a yellow light there, which just knocked down to red. We have three locomotives pulling this train. All three are AC 4400s built by Kato. This is my second operations video on an intermodal train coming from the west and stopping into Global 3 in Rochelle. If you go back to episode 11, it also featured an intermodal train heading through the same type of operations that you'll see today. Here we get a really nice view of two trains crossing at the same time across the Mississippi River Bridge. Kind of trying to go more prototypical speeds, especially across the bridge here. This is about the speeds. This is going about 20-25 miles per hour, which I'm not sure what the speed limit is across the bridge, but they usually go pretty slow. So I'm doing my second one on intermodal for a couple of reasons. One is because the intermodal operations is probably one of the more popular types of operations video. Not only popular with viewers of my YouTube channel, but also popular with myself as well. I definitely I think of all the trains, like the intermodal trains the best. Both to watch and to operate. And Global 3 is probably one of the more interesting operations based areas of the layout. Second reason I want to do another operations video on this intermodal train is because I made some updates to Global 3, so I wanted to do operations video with the updates. There you can see one of the first ones there. The booth there has the details added, which were not in the first video. The train starts off on track 1. It has to do two crossovers. The first crossover from track 1 to track 2. Second crossover, as you see it going through now, is from track 2 into Global 3. Looks like we have a crude oil tank train waiting for this intermodal train to enter the yard. And again, from this shot you can see a lot of the detail added. Not only the detail at the booth with the crossing gates and the computer check-in points and everything, but also have all the concrete barriers in place. What you see there right now is the entry gates, and then in the distance is the exit gates. Don't have any of the barriers glued down yet. I'm just want to take a look at them first, where they're at, to see if that's where I'm happy with them being at. And I think I'm about to the point of gluing them down a little bit more permanently, and then I'm going to go through and see if I can't weather it a little bit. So this train arrived at the yard here, and there's 4 classification tracks. They usually have the incoming trains arrive into track 1, but they actually can arrive at any of the tracks. There's not designated arrival and departure tracks here at this yard, but it's going to go ahead and pull all the way forward. It needs to clear the crossover and get completely off of the main line, so that the main line will be clear for other traffic. So we slowly crank down the throttle and come to a stop here at Global 3. And the first thing we'll need to do is go ahead and uncouple the locomotives from the train and set them into the engine facilities. This is pretty much how it looks in Rochelle. You have these modern locomotives and modern trains right in the middle of cornfields and in the middle of farm country. There are a lot of cornfields around Global 3. The actual intermodal facility is just west of Rochelle, so it is out there in farm country. I notice on the throttle I'm accessing 6717 and turning on the headlights for make sure I'm following safety regulations. You can also notice the 3 locomotives are being controlled with by 5799. That's the throttle I'm using. When other locomotives are consisted with a locomotive, so the 6735 and 6717 are consisted to 5799. So any throttle changes on 5799 are messages or controls that are received by all 3 locomotives. But anyway, when you try to access the locomotive like 6717, the speed number shows up. It's some random number. It's not 0. It can be anything from 10 to 99. I'm not sure how it picks a number. But even though you can't adjust the speed, you can still access all the function buttons, and so you're able to turn on the headlights, which I did. So you have there 3 AC 4400s. I have I think 11 of these altogether, all made by Kato. Did a lot of renumbering on them so that they each have individual numbers. 6717 and 6735 are both stock numbers, but then this the lead unit 5799 that started out as 5791. So I used alcohol and pencil eraser to remove the 1, and then put on a decal for the 9, so that we have 5799. So I did that on a number of them. I have a couple that I actually repainted or painted from scratch. I got a couple of undecorated models and painted them from scratch. But anyway, here we have the yard crew at Global 3. There's 2 sets of engines that work both ends of the yard, similarly to what takes place in Proviso. Looks like the tank train is getting underway since the main line is clear. So in Global 3 here, we have a couple of swap outs to do. We have 2 cars to drop off, as well as 2 cars to add to the train. And the first thing we're doing here is pulling the train back. I was just was going to adjust it to make sure it was coupled, but it's already coupled up. But anyway, so I'm pulling the train back here. As you know, it was all the way towards the front. Gonna use this set of engines to pull it back, and then we'll be able to access it with the second set of engines to do some switching from the other side of the train. So as you can see from the switch list, we have a couple of cars to drop off first. Usually I usually drop off the cars first and then add cars. If you add the cars first, it just gets to be too many cars on one track, on the lead track, the drill tracks, as well as track 1. So usually just a little bit less cumbersome if you drop off first and then add. The 2 cars that we're dropping off are on this more close to the front end of the train, so we'll drop them off from this end. Those 2 locomotives are Atlas engines. The locomotive 121 is I think it's a B23-7, and then 912 is a Jeep 40, I believe. Okay, so one of the cars is the very first car there. That's an AOK. Last 3 numbers 276, I believe. So that's going to be the first one we're going to drop off. And then we'll have to look for the second one. I don't think it's too far down the line from the head end of the train. You can see there's been some work done on the locomotive facilities as well, of the sanding station there, as well as all the fuel gantry cranes, or fuel cranes. Can't really see them, they're blocked by the locomotives we just parked. Get a little bit different viewpoint here. So we'll go ahead and set this car, even though it's 3 wells, but I just considered it as one car since they're permanently, actually they're articulated, so they're always together, and I'll have one road number. So we'll set that in track 4. Now, if you notice, the headlight is blinking on the unit there, and it's kind of jerking. That means that there's a short somewhere. So I have the other trains running, and I must have left a switch. There you saw it kind of transition. So now that's not blinking. So basically I stopped what I was doing one end and figured out what was shorting out. There was a turnout. And fixed it and then came back, and now we're back at switching the layout. So the DCC station has a, actually not the station, but there's, as part of the electronics, has everything set up on power districts. So when one of the power districts is shorting, you can still run trains, but you do see that blinking, which is helpful because then I can notice what's going on and you know, go back and see what's shorting and take care of it. All right, so we're looking for our second car to drop off. And it's a little bit further down the line than we actually have room for. So you can't see it yet. It turns out it's that first green EMP container. All right, that's the car with the 3 EMP containers. That's the car that needs to be dropped off, but as you can tell, the locomotives are already pretty well to the end of the drill track. So it's not going to work to pull all of those out. It's not going to, there's not enough room. So even though I need to drop off those the car with the EMP containers, the first thing I'm going to need to do is temporarily set a car in front of the EMP containers, and temporarily set it in one of the classification tracks, and then go back and get the car that I need. So we're going to go ahead and uncouple here, and then temporarily set this red car, which is actually a 5-unit articulated car. And we'll put that in track 3 temporarily, and then get the one that we need and get it dropped off. As I'm doing this switching, I have 3 trains running on the main line. So we'll periodically see some trains going through, which is always adds a lot of interest to what's going on. So we have another crude oil tank car going through. Those are BLMA tank cars. I have to make sure I don't forget to get that car again and put it back on the train before I finish up here. One other thing that's been added since did this Global 3 operations video is a lot more tanks, oil storage tanks by the engine facilities, and then also there by the car shop. Those are a Walther's kit, I believe. You see, I'm multitasking here while I'm running the yard switchers there. I'm also adjusting speeds on the mainline trains and running the camera at the same time. Alright, so now we should be able to, we have enough room now to be able to uncouple the EMP container car and set it in track 4, and then we'll go back and get the the K line red car and put it back into our train. Alright, we now have both cars that we're to set out into track 4. So we'll go ahead and wait till it stops. Alright, we'll go ahead and uncouple. And go ahead and pull forward as we have a auto rack train going forward, or going through. And then go ahead and make sure we get the car that we temporarily dropped off and get it back onto the train. I need a little extra help to get coupled there. This is going to be part 1, by the way, of a 2-part series on this particular train. Part 1, you are watching, and we'll conclude here in just a little bit as we put this train back together. Part 2 will include doing some switching from the other side of the train, and need to add a couple cars yet to the train, and then do some other movement of cars around the yard, and then as well as reconnecting a new set of locomotives to the train, and then continuing the run across the Geneva Subdivision through Rochelle, Wheaton, Elmhurst, Proviso, Maywood, River Forest, and then into the East Aging Yard and the Ashland Yard. Alright, so we got the train all back together, and we're going to go ahead and push it a ways. We'll want to get these locomotives out of the way while the train is worked from the other side. So we'll go ahead and push it beyond this turnout here that the locomotives are at, and we'll go ahead and uncouple the locomotives from the train at this point, and then we'll run them into the little lead there that goes into the load and unload tracks. If you haven't had a chance yet, make sure you go to my blog and check out the track plan. A gentleman by the name of Jim Peter was so nice to put together a track plan for the layout. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that yet, make sure you do so. And also don't forget to sign up or follow me on Instagram and Twitter. The username is UPGenSub. So make sure you do that. I'll be posting things as I do scenery and so forth. You can kind of see it step by step as I work on the layout. We're going to go ahead and conclude this video at this point, and part 2 will be posted tomorrow. So we'll have 2 back-to-back on 2 consecutive days, and you'll be able to see the second half where we're doing some more switching on this side of the layout, and then also putting the locomotives back onto the train and heading back or heading on for the rest of the run. So until tomorrow, I hope you have enjoyed this video, and suggest that you make a point to tune in tomorrow as well to see the second half. Hope you have had a great Thanksgiving. Take care.